Have you ever, after watching an incredible film, after the screen is faded to black and the credits are rolling, just sat there in awe and thought about how good the film you just witnessed was? Well, in 1997, for perhaps the first time for many in history, people all around the world got this same exact experience from the comfort of their own home, but not from a film. On January 31st, 1997, Final Fantasy VII was released on the PlayStation 1 console and ignited the imaginations of gamers worldwide with its rich storytelling, almost cinematic presentation, and incredibly captivating world that blended both sci-fi elements and traditional fantasy. This game was heavily advertised and marketed by Sony leading up to its release, leading to over 9 million copies sold of this game within its lifetime. But interestingly enough, because of this game's widespread acclaim and very strong sales, it also ended up being many gamers' first foray into a game really diving into mental health issues, as well as some facets of neurodivergency and psychology as a whole. Final Fantasy VII is not only a masterclass in the JRPG genre and in storytelling overall, but also a masterclass in making mental health issues more approachable for mass audiences. And this is shown in pretty much every single character in this game, with each struggling with a different issue. So grab your Buster Sword, hop on a cool 1990s motorcycle, and join me as I dive into how Final Fantasy VII is a masterpiece of mental health storytelling that you didn't realize till now. But before we begin, be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell for notifications and share this video with a friend if you think they may like it as well. Also leave a comment down below telling me if there's other games you want to see me cover from a neurodivergent or psychological perspective. Also join my Discord where we often have watch parties and discuss what I should talk about next in these videos. But anyway, on to today's video. So the first general theme revolving around mental health to kind of tackle here with Final Fantasy VII is the theme of identity. Obviously this is most prevalently seen with a character like Cloud, who quite literally has his entire character arc based around the idea of identity and his own false identity of himself. Cloud is somebody who felt an unburgeoning desire to try and be somebody and stand out to everybody else around him. In his childhood, he's shy and he's a loner, and he doesn't really know Tifa personally at all, which is revealed at a pretty critical point of the game. The only connection he really has to Tifa at all in his childhood is him kind of admiring her from afar and wanting to be noticed by her, but not really knowing how to stand out to her whatsoever. Then, one day, Tifa decided to take the passage through Mount Evil to try and get reunited with her dead mother. However, none of her friends would choose to accompany her on this journey because they thought it was all too dangerous. The only one who came with her was actually Cloud, who wanted to try and protect Tifa. Unfortunately, being two kids in the mountains, Cloud and Tifa both get injured after falling down the mountain, with Tifa suffering much more major injuries than Cloud. This causes the entire village to despise Cloud and blame him for getting Tifa injured, and this actually causes him to feel incredibly bad about himself and be even more desperate to try and press Tifa instead after her. But interestingly enough, unbeknownst to him, Tifa is actually already impressed with him after having seen he's the only one that went up with her to the mountain, the only one who was brave enough to do so and try to protect her. Cloud, not realizing Tifa was actually developing feelings for him behind the scenes, decided to try and join Soldier to prove he was strong. Unfortunately for him, this is actually the catalyst and the point where he ended up losing his entire identity, since after being stabbed by Sephiroth and somehow also winning against Sephiroth in a fight, Cloud is experimented on by Hojo and loses almost all his memories and ends up just a mumbling mess. The one who's actually able to save him from all this torture is Zack, who unfortunately ends up paying the ultimate price and sacrifices himself to keep Cloud safe. As a result, Cloud actually subconsciously rewrites himself as a hero and tries to separate himself from all this trauma. He dumps pretty much his entire true identity and comes up with this forged identity that's able to keep him sane, while pretending to be a soldier ends up running into Tifa as well, who's surprised to see him after all these years. Tifa does notice right away there's something wrong with him and he's not the same person that she once knew, but she decides not to say anything because she wants him in her life. So already even here, there's already a pretty good take on identity between the characters of Cloud and Tifa. Cloud is somebody who's lost his entire identity because he keeps trying to be somebody else. Even before having his memory wiped by Shinra, he was already trying to be somebody else by joining Soldier and trying to put on a big act for Tifa. And as a result, after losing his memory and being experimented on by Shinra, this is just who he reverted into being. This is very interesting and also a realistic psychological thing too, because oftentimes, to keep us shielded from trauma, our brains will try to fill in gaps in certain places and erase memories and overlay them with other ones. This is actually a real thing that happens. So seeing this portrayed in a game from 1997 is super ahead of the curve. Another thing I find interesting about this is actually the fact that Tifa is the one who helps Cloud find his lost memories and figure out who he is and piece himself back together at the end of the day. When she and Cloud are thrown in the live stream, it's up to her to actually do this. And she's really the one who helps put him back together psychologically. Instead of just waiting for him to be the hero that she thought she wanted, she ends up being able to put him back together psychologically herself and being his hero. At the end of the day, she's the one to save him. This is just a great role reversal and honestly really cool writing for 1987. It's still crazy to me this game is now over 25 years old but still holds up so well. It has many poignant things about the human condition within it. But interestingly enough, the identity theme doesn't actually stop with Cloud. Barret also has an interesting arc with identity also in this game. Barret is an interesting one because he totally identifies himself with his failure to save Dine, his friend back in the slums. Dine died at the hands of Shinra back in his local village, leaving Dine's daughter, Marlene, an orphan. As a result, Barret ends up taking Marlene in, feeling as though he is responsible for Dine's death and taking that burden upon himself. He puts on this tough guy act constantly to try and psychologically shield himself from his real insecurities and the fact that he's constantly scared. And kinda like Cloud actually, he tries to pretend he's somebody he's not. It's not until later in the game, at a pretty distinct turning point, that he's able to be okay being himself and look forward to a future with Marlene, where he doesn't have to fight or feel like he has to be a tough guy all the time. This is a really cool thing to see in Barret, and it's very cool to see the game kind of touch on toxic masculinity a little bit, and Barret shedding those expectations of him. Once again, especially very cool when you consider how ahead of the curve the game was on stuff like this. Yet another main party member, Red 13, is also someone who struggles with this identity thing, funnily enough, which is a common thing that seems to link this group together, which we'll talk about why in just a second here. Red 13, or Nanagi really, is a creature that Cloud and the others find when trying to rescue Aerith from Hojo's clutches. The game doesn't initially tell you much about him, but later on you learn that he is actually part of a tribe of wolf-lion creatures. And he discusses that he doesn't like opening up too much at all to other people because of parental issues, funnily enough. He states when he thinks of his mother, he's filled with pride and joy, but when he thinks of his father, he's filled with shame and anger. He claims that his father is actually somebody that abandoned his entire tribe when they needed him most, and left him and his mother, which infuriates him to this day. However, it seems as though that's actually not the case, since Seto, his dad, actually is the one who sacrificed himself to defend their tribe and save them all, which until now Nanagi didn't realize. To be honest, I think if Nanagi's arc and story had just ended here, that would be actually pretty uninteresting because that'd just be a generic misunderstanding story with no real endgame to it. But that's not what this is, which thank God. Instead, after discovering what his father really did and how he died hero, Nanagi has to learn how to not live in his father's shadow, and how to try and be his own person and find his own self, which again is a very common theme here. And it's tackled in a very well-written way with Nanagi in particular. So as you can see here, identity is a pretty common theme in this game, and pretty much each member of the main cast has some sort of hurdle they have to overcome, their own identity, and trying to find their true self. This is obviously a real facet of mental health as well, and also correlates to the main villain in this game, Sephiroth, funnily enough. Sephiroth acts as a real foil to the entire main cast journey of identity, having his own real journey of identity, but it being the complete inverse of what they go through. Sephiroth, Cloud, Red 13, and Barret all went through life thinking they were one thing, only to have that idealized version of themselves violently shattered. Specifically for Cloud and Sephiroth, this causes them both to disassociate at some point, becoming something else entirely. And both of them come out of this experience with a new identity, outlook, and goal. The key difference here is how different Sephiroth's ultimate realization and goal is from Cloud. Sephiroth was an experiment created by Hojo using Genova's cells, and as a result, since he has nothing really else to latch onto, he ends up taking on the role of Genova and decides to try and destroy the planet. Cloud, however, has a real support group of his friends, and this is what makes the difference. Because he has Barret, Tifa, Red 13, Yuffie, Sid, and everybody else at his side, that is what ultimately is able to help him find his real sense of self, and not feel alone at all, or ostracized, or disassociate anymore. He's finally confident in just being himself. And that's really what a support group will do for anyone. If you are someone that is struggling, find help. You can't do this alone, none of us can really. At the end of the day, we're all still human and we all go through the same struggles oftentimes. It's really important that we all be there for each other, no matter what. So, if you are someone who's struggling as well, don't disassociate. Find help, find people who get you. Find people who just like you for who you are and always be there for you every step of the way. I'm really fortunate to have people like that in my life myself. That's not something I always had, to be honest. But since making these videos on YouTube and seeing more autistic people find these videos and be able to feel validated in their identity and their sense of self through them, that has helped me feel validated in what I'm doing here. So thank you to anyone and everyone who has ever given any of my videos any positive attention at all. It means more than you might know, and I am really happy this message is getting out there for more people. Here's to many more videos just like this one. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. If you want to check out all my socials down below, you can see all those down there. And if you want to join my Discord too, where you can communicate with me and others offline, that should be linked down below. And if you want to check out my Letterboxd, that is linked down below as well. That's where I review movies, oftentimes movies or shows I won't review here on YouTube. So you can check that out too if you want extra content from me. But for now, I've been Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the otter side. Bye!